This is it, D-Day. 6 days after that, the rest of our outfit embarks. We're on our way. We approach the beachhead. We hit the beach, move inland to a town called St. Lo. St. Lo had been devastated by Allied bombing, and it was just a wreck of a place. And here I made a painting based upon sketches that I made at the time, keeping in my field pack always my little watercolor set and my watercolor pad. And here I show two GIs walking through St. Lo. Also in St. Lo, I made another painting. And I kind of depicted myself here, sitting on the ground near some ruined buildings, staring up in the skies, watching an Me-109, a Messerschmitt, come toward us. We didn't know whether it was going to strafe or not. Fortunately for us, it did not. As we move through France, on occasion we have the opportunity to pitch our little tents, putting our shelter heads and digging foxholes and slit trenches, and watching the morning and the evening appear as we bivouac, waiting for further orders, constantly moving on. I made this one late evening, and I was so impressed by the color of the waning sun, which lent a feeling of peace in a time of war. Rarely mail from home. And here I made a little watercolor painting of GIs reading their mail from home. On occasion, also a salami might reach us, which was shared by all. And here we were, somewhere in France, somewhere in Belgium, somewhere in war, but I know I wanted to be somewhere at home. Somewhere in France, night guard. It was always guard. I remember guarding this shed at night. It was raining, it was pouring, I was miserable, I was wet. I made this painting in 1948 from a sketch made 3 years earlier. It seemed that we were spending half of our war years on guard duty. Rain, slime, sleet, snow, dark of night, whatever, you had to keep awake. In fact, I do recall putting matchsticks in our eyes just to keep our lids open so we looked awake. Coffee at that time given to us on night guard was really powerful. They brewed it twice. They used the old coffee to brew right through the grounds of new coffee. And we drank that, we just couldn't close our eyes. This is an oil painting painted on a small piece of 12 by 12 inch masonite board. One can look and even see the texture, the even texture of the masonite through the oil paint. This painting also was done in 1948 from a 1945 sketch. Our primary mission was deception, and camouflage being part of that deception. And I made this painting attempting to show a badly designed camouflage installation covering up rubber dummy tanks and artillery. This was badly designed so that we could be hopefully sure that the enemy would detect us and think it was a real unit here, a real tank unit. Our unit finally settles as a home base in the city of Luxembourg and the country of Luxembourg. And here we live in what we call a bomb shelter. We called it the bomb shelter. I don't know if it was or not. The environment there was musty, cold, and I try to show that, dramatizing the effect, perhaps maybe a little bit too much, perhaps not, to give the feeling of the environment. I wanted to give the feeling of what we felt in this painting rather than what we saw. And again, this was an oil painting done from a small watercolor at the time. Various units of our outfit on occasion were sent on assignments in this battle area or in that battle area. And here we were sent on assignments back into battle territory. And here I painted, believe it or not, a watercolor of a GI working his way under barbed wire. Later on, we went through barbed wire using what we call Bangalore torpedoes, which is no more than a large metal tube filled with high explosives. We'd shove it under the barbed wire, blow it up, run in through it. We moved from Luxembourg to Paris. And in this watercolor, I depict in a hotel in Paris a GI just sort of sitting there, relaxing. I used the painting to make an abstract painting. In fact, I did it the very next day, a la Picasso. Still using the watercolor medium, which was the only medium I had. To some, perhaps, this painting may seem a bit strange, but I preferred this particular style at that point to the realistic style that you just saw. Years later, in 1949, I used many older watercolors to create this particular oil painting based upon the two abstracts that you saw before. I always felt it was kind of common for many artists to derive inspiration from their own older works, using what they had done in the past to create for the future. Back in 1945, another painting, a watercolor of a GI sitting in his little Paris room. In Paris, there was a little cafe known as 9 We often went there to get a drink. We would travel in Paris always in two or more for our protection. There were incidents of ambushing American GIs on their way to get a beer. I tried here to show, in this oil painting done much later, the feeling of fear on the faces of two GIs trying to go through this darkened streets of Paris to 9 for a drink. Going into this bistro in Paris called 9 I called this large oil painting that Kilroy was here. I never knew who Kilroy was, but he was everywhere, and so was beer. I sometimes think I drank enough beer from 1942 through 1945 to float a battleship, but beer was solace to the GI. While in Paris, we often used their version of our New York City subway. It was called the Metro. Underground, and yet in some suburban areas, it went from underground to overground. And here we see a small temper painting done in about 20 minutes on the spot in a station on the Parisian Metro. We leave the comfort of Paris, move out into the field again on another assignment. Christmas is coming up. The Germans make their last big offensive, Bastogne. What we're going to look at now are some battle scenes in oil that I painted from sketches I made at Bastogne. In this particular sketch, I try to show the fear in the eyes of two GIs at a point when a shell explodes near them and they pray. I know I did. I show here a watercolor sketch of Private Harold Fish. He was the youngest fellow in our outfit, and boy was he ever scared. Cried at times. So what? So did I, and so was I scared.